Hey guys, how are you on this snowy Wednesday here in Canada? East Coast, well not East Coast, Eastern Canada. And that's okay because you know what? The postman came. And when the postman cometh, so do multimeters. So, at least I'm hoping that's what this is. Let's take a look what we've got in here. Alrighty. This was a purchase via eBay. And oh, that's a good sign. I do see probes. Good, I can add to my collection of 6,000 probes. And there's the little beast right there. Oh yeah. Unwrap you, baby. Here we go. Wow, look at that. Kind of used and abused. It ain't new, folks. No. Jesus, it looks even worse in real life, but yeah. So, this is an HP, a Hewlett Packard E2373A multimeter. Does it have batteries at least? It does. And yet the display is actually working. So I'm going to clean this guy up and just do a little bit of testing, just see how it relates to today's more modern multimeters. Now HP made some pretty darn nice meters in its time, and this is one of them. Now it's only volts AC/DC, diode continuity, resistance, milliamps, and amps. And we're going to do a few things. We'll check out the continuity, do a basic voltage test. We'll see how good this guy stood up through the test of time. And as you can see, it is made in Japan. So, yeah. Do a little bit of in-house cleanup and put it on the bench and do some testing. Can hardly wait. Something that works really, really well in cleaning up these old meters is Meguiar's Plastex. It's a clear plastic cleaner and polish, and it does remove fine scratches. Now this one has some gouges and what have you, and it's not going to get rid of everything, but it's going to get rid of some stuff, and it really does do a decent job. As you can see, there's a lot of scratches on this glass here. So we're going to try and get rid of some of that stuff because I don't like scratches on my meters. Most meters I do get that are old or vintage, I do try to get them pretty well in mint condition, but you know what, every time one comes along that I just feel like I want to get, and I got to clean it up. So I'm going to clean this guy up. Why am I talking like this? I'm not sure. So, taking out the Plastex, and what I like to do is well, first you got to give it a good shaky, little wakey. I put a dab right on the glass. Now they tell you not to, but I like to. At the same time, take a wet cloth, not a wet cloth, I'm sorry, a dry cloth, and put a dab on there. Then I like to work it in first with my finger. Some of these gouges have been there a long time, right? So we're gonna just let it work in like that. Now don't worry about the excess residue on the side because we're gonna clean that all up anyway. So I'm gonna let that sit for a minute. Now, we're going to take our cloth and we're going to start buffing it. So I'm basically doing a circle. And I'm putting a little bit of pressure, not too much because you don't want to destroy the LCD itself, right? But you got to put just a little bit of pressure just to get those fine particles out of that glass. Okay, so just taking a look-see here. Definitely looks better. Now I'm going to take the clean side of the cloth and keeping up that swirling motion. So we got rid of a lot of the fine scratches. Now those big gouges you see there, those aren't going to come out. Those are there for the long term. So, but as long as we can, you know, clean it up, and believe you me, it actually does look a lot better. Not sure how it's showing up on the camera, but definitely looking much better here. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same step 1 or 2 more times, then we'll take it to the next level. Okay, so I hope you'll agree that definite improvement over the glass. Once again, these gouges here, they've actually, you know, decreased in intensity. They're still there, but overall, yeah, much improved. So once again, that was just with the Plast X. Probably the best thing for this type of work. So the next thing I'm going to do is clean the meter, and I find that just regular dish detergent, I particularly like Dawn. This is not a plug for Dawn. I just like the way it works. So we're going to clean the body, and before we do that, we're going to actually take it apart. Now with this particular HP meter, there's only one Phillips. Now when you do have an older meter like this, you never really know what you're going to find. So you got to be really delicate, really careful. I have screwed up a meter in the past because I was so excited to take it apart, and I just did it too quickly, and some component had seized and I cracked the plastic. So just take your time. And in this case, yeah, that's coming out nice and slow. Wow, very interesting. So yeah, right off the get-go, you can see that looks like we have a little bit of battery leakage here. Some acid corrosion is on the top of the shielding, but at least there's shielding. So what we'll do is we're going to also clean out the battery housing. Always a good idea whether or not there is any leakage at all. And I'm going to remove this even further. Also down here we've got some flux residue, so we're going to clean that up as well. We're just going to basically give this thing a really good bath. So in terms of the actual cleaning, first I'm going to be cleaning the case, both parts, and then we'll get down to the component level. So once again, do take your time. Really, you've only got one chance to get it right. Not worth rushing and cracking something. Believe me, been there, done that. So with careful prying, it eventually came out of the tabs. Just a little bit of pressure each time. And I like to use a tweezer. Preferably something that's not sharp to actually lift it out of the assembly. And here we go. And there we are. So there's the reverse side of the board. Now we're going to clean that as well, of course. So we're going to carefully remove the battery, because what we want to do is we want to separate the electronics from the actual chassis before we clean it. You'll find that in a lot of multimeters they have these little pull tabs, and basically it's just a matter of carefully pulling them back. Same thing in the body itself. You carefully remove the tabs and it should pop right off. So the last part we see here that's connected is the, looks like a battery, but it's actually the piezo, the speaker. Just carefully, it should just be laying in there. Yeah, it is. So yeah, look at that. Old speaker, and it still looks really good. Is there a part number on there? PKM 35-480. Alright, so now that leaves us with a nice clean backing to clean. Well, not. And as well, I don't know if you saw that, this was a grounding spring that came apart when I took off the assembly. And that just goes over here. And that just grounds the meter. So they were thinking of everything back then. And look at that gorgeous brass insert here. So nice quality. Yeah. Okay, so next we're going to actually clean the chassis with the dish detergent. Lots of bubbles, no troubles. That's what my grandma used to say. Well, something like that anyway. So, what I like to do is actually submerge the entire unit. So the whole assembly is going in there. Shielding and all. Same for this guy here. And I'm going to let that soak for a good, at least an hour. And pull it out when we're done. Okay, so once that hour or so is up, I mean, if it's really, 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 really grimy, then you want to leave it in there at least 2 or 3 hours. But in this case, it was bad, but not ultra bad. Just gonna turn it around a little bit, get a little bit of TLC, and take it out, and look at that. That's looking clean. That's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to go and just rinse this off under some lukewarm water and be right back. Finally, once it's all cleaned, what I'd like to do as well is just take a blow dryer on gentle heat. And then I'm just going to let this dry for, well, you can do it overnight if you're really patient, or at least for 3 or 4 hours. And let's go to the PCB. So while the board is drying, we're going to take a look at the PCB itself. Now, just give it a nice overall inspection, and I mean, considering the length, I mean how old this meter is, it's in relatively good condition. So what I'm going to concentrate on specifically is, for instance, here where we see a lot of this old flux. I'm going to try and get this cleaned, at least to some degree, as well as I'm going to clean out the battery housing terminals. As well, here you see they glued the crystal oscillator. I'm also going to take Q-tips and I'm going to clean the control knob. And I will probably apply some deoxit just to help improve the contact, keep out the corrosion, what have you. I'll apply that just underneath here to the chassis as well. It's a really great product. So yeah, so we're just going to go after this little guy and clean it. And I'm debating right now whether or not I'm going to clean that LCD display. Okay, so I have some MG chemical wipes. These are really handy dandy little guys. And they're nice to have for situations such as this. I like it a little better than a Q-tip for something like this, just because I can sort of get in there. Give it a good wipe down. Now if you find you have lots of corrosion, you can also go get in there. See how it's just coming off? Just like butter. See that? If it's, you know, not coming off or being problematic, of course you can always use a toothbrush as well. But in this case, I think we're going to be okay. I don't want to scrub too hard, you know, but just hard enough. And hopefully by the time we're done, we can get another 30 years out of this meter. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, looking much, much better. So on the battery terminal here, you can see we have some corrosion. So I'm going to gently try and clean that as well. Definitely want to get rid of anything corrosive before we put it back together. As well with the older meters, the way they did things was a little bit differently. In this case, they've shrouded the fuse in a nice plastic assembly. And well, you can actually see it looks like sand in that fuse. So I'm just going to go ahead and test the fuse, just make sure it's good, since we've got it all opened up. Alright, let's have our meter in continuity. Yeah, and we're good to go. Next, I'm going to take some alcohol and have a drink. No, I'm not going to drink. I am going to clean the metal shrouds. So just take a Q-tip and give it a dip, and just go inside like so. Once again, dust, grime, everything can build up and get a foothold in these shrouds. So since you've got it apart, I mean, why not? So I'll do this a couple of times and come right back. Okay, now I'm also going to take some the deoxit, and I'm going to give the contacts everywhere. And as well, I'm going to do it on this selector switch. You don't use too much, just sparingly, because the little goes a long way. Just work it around. Looking good. I've decided to go ahead and attempt to clean the display as well. I didn't really want to because you could kind of mess things up here royally, but I figured, you know, yeah, I've got it part this far. Let's do it. So. Wow, that is in there really, really well. Okay, it just comes off like that. So I'm going to go ahead and take some alcohol and clean all the contacts at the top. Take a look at that M6306. It's the IC on this guy. So I'm getting in there good. Giving it a good cleaning. It's definitely needed it, that's for sure. I'm going to go along the sides here and kind of get every little area that I can. And as well, I'm going to take some alcohol and I'm going to gently do zebra strip like so. Okay, so we've got it back together. We're going to go ahead and stick it back on ever so gently. This is where you can really screw things up, so just take your time. There we go. So, yeah. Hopefully we didn't screw anything up, and it's nice and clean, and good as new. Well, almost as good as new. So I've gone ahead and I've taken off the entire rotary switch assembly, and as you can see, the contacts actually surprisingly don't look that bad. But I'm just going to apply. Oh, that's a little bit too much, but what the heck. So that is the deoxit. And this is really good stuff. So we'll just wipe off that excess. And it just helps prevent corrosion and all that funky stuff. And I've just got some alcohol here on my cloth. And I'll just give it a little rub down. Make it one real happy selector switch. And same thing for the contacts. I've just gone ahead and dipped it in some alcohol and applied a little bit of that deoxit. Give that a little bit of a touch up. Now I'll just go ahead and put the rotary switch back on and we're good to go. Now something else worth pointing out is the fact that I have decided to actually go ahead and put in a new zebra strip. So the elastomer has been replaced, and fortunately I thought it was filming, but it had stopped during the filming, so I will show you what I had just completed. Alrighty, so as you can see here, this was actually taken out of a relatively new multimeter, less than a year old. This here was the original elastomer that was in the HP, and as you can see, I had just cut down that new one. Only had to take off about, a couple of millimeters to get it to fit. And yeah, so there you go. If you do have to replace the elastomer in an older multimeter, don't despair. Even if you can't find a replacement, you can usually jimmy one from an existing multimeter, and it seems to work without any hiccups whatsoever. So brand new elastomer in here. That should be definitely adding some longevity to the display. Another useful trick as well is just to take a simple eraser, and sometimes there's gunk that's in there. It just doesn't come out with the normal alcohol. So it's always nice just to take an eraser, and believe it or not, this actually works, and it works really well. And just gets off all that surface grime. And you'd be surprised just how effective that is. After that, I'll just touch up with some alcohol and put it all back together. This particular meter also had a piece of plastic, and it had come out of the display when I had removed it initially, and that just fits into the crevice. There's a little indentation in the plastic glass panel. Plastic glass, that's a play on words. Anyway, it just slips in there like so, if I can get it. And let's see here. And what that does is just helps to hold the elastomer strip in place, and probably gives it a little bit of pressure as well. And before I put it back together, I'm just going to take one more Q-tip. Oh, that's a dirty Q-tip. I don't like the dirty Q-tips. Okay, clean Q-tip. And just get these switch contacts here where the push button switches connect to. Give them a nice little cleaning. Yeah. Alrighty. Interesting as well, you can see this shielding really for the CPU. I wasn't sure exactly what it was. I thought perhaps it was some sort of a something to do with the display itself, but it seems to be some sort of shielding. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so we're going to put it back together and see what happens. By the way, one of the neat things about this particular meter is the fact that you can calibrate it in the field. There are 4 trim pots, and as you can see with the diagram on the right, Hewlett Packard was kind enough to actually tell us how to go about calibrating them. So kind of neat, something you just don't see on today's multimeters, but there you have it. Alrighty, so my favorite, let's try continuity on a 30-year-old 2373A. Hey, not bad. I'll take it. Did say I'd take it out for a little test drive down the voltage lane, and as you can see, it is pretty darn accurate. So at the end of the day, if you enjoy multimeters as much as I do, restoring an older model is a lot of fun. You learn a lot, you see the different intricacies, the nuances that they did with the technology in the bygone years, and it's a great learning tool as well. You can even make some money on the side if you decide to resell them down the road. It's a win-win. Most important, have fun. Take your time and enjoy the results. Hope you enjoyed this small tutorial on multimeter restoration. Most importantly, you got it. Keep on testing.